There we go. Well, hello there, niggas and wiggers. Uppity white guy again. So anyway, something huge just happened in the media, but in the world in general. Something huge just happened. Tucker Carlson interviewed Vladimir Putin. Now, you got our government, you know our government is crooked as shit. If they're running a propaganda campaign so that the average citizen cannot hear what this guy has to say. All you hear is Ukraine this, Ukraine that. We need to funnel billions of dollars into Ukraine. No, we don't. First of all, let me explain. Tucker Carlson tried to interview him over a year ago. But the DOJ hacked his phone. Private citizen hacked his phone. That ought to tell you something right there. They hacked his phone trying to prevent him from interviewing Vladimir Putin. And, you know, they keep telling you, oh, you're pro-Putin. Not pro-Putin, asshole. You just want to hear what the guy has to say. Because we want to know why he went into Ukraine. Now, I could pretty much tell you why. Two things I took away from this interview. One, this country, the United States, people think has been around for a while. It has not. A couple hundred years ain't shit. A couple hundred years isn't shit. There were people roaming the lands of Europe and stuff when time was into single digits. Okay? We're not talking, oh, it was 1600. No. We're talking like 001 BC and shit. Like, people were roaming Europe then and other countries. Outside the United States, first of all, the average United States citizen cannot fathom how far back things go. In Europe, in Russia, in Asia, in other countries outside the United States, the average American is, well, quite frankly, doesn't understand history. They don't understand that borders and such have been redrawn again and again and again and again and again, and what used to be Russian people are now called Ukrainians. They don't understand this. And they're probably never going to, because in this country we just cannot grasp the history that comes with it. And Putin went into this long history lesson. It was fascinating, actually, to listen to the guy talk. It was fascinating. I'm not pro-communist. Fuck him, but it was fascinating to listen to him talk. It really, really was. I think this interview was the most important interview of our lifetime. But some of you will not understand that. One, this country is just not old enough. And two, the average American is too fucking stupid to comprehend what the guy was even saying. It was pretty complicated. It was kind of hard to follow at times, but you can always watch it again. That's the great thing about the internet. And I will watch it. The fact of the matter is, what the guy was saying was that some people over in Ukraine, there's a couple takeaways from this, some people over in Ukraine still consider themselves Russian. Like, they never stopped considering themselves Russian. And when Russia gave up all the satellite countries, like Poland and all this stuff, and they gave up all these satellite countries, the deal was, we'll give them up, but NATO may not cross this line. In other words, they may not join NATO. Okay? Because that would be the equivalent of somebody you don't like right out on your front lawn. And who wants that? You know, I remind you, recent history, this thing called the Cuban Missile Crisis. And we didn't like it when they put missiles right offshore of Florida. Right offshore of the United States, we had missiles pointed at us. That was devastating. We don't like that. Countries don't like that. Give us some room. They don't like that. Well, do you think Russia wants Ukraine to join NATO? It's right on its border. It's right on its border. And if you go back in history, like not recent history, but history, way back, thousands of years, they were Russians. So Russia still considers it theirs. You know, so this is something in the United States we have no concept of. And we're never going to understand. Much like the Middle East. We think we have some balls on us, this country. What this country is doing is very, very wrong. To think that you can go in somewhere and interject yourself because you're the United States and you're going to change what's been happening, wars that have been happening for thousands and thousands and thousands of years since man threw the first stone. You're not going to be, just because you're the United States, shut the fuck up. You're not going to change anything. The only thing you're going to come back is, you're going to come back in body bags. You're not going to end these wars that have been going on for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. They have to settle them themselves. We have no business in them. And we have no business propping up basically what Putin said was a coup. This guy Zelensky, he shouldn't even be president. We put him in there. That's not our business. Whether their elections are crooked or not, we know ours are crooked. But we always want to hold ourselves above everybody else. We're full of shit. Okay, we have no business being over there. Not one. And don't think that we don't have boots on the ground already. We do. And we have no business being over there. We need to let Russia handle its own business. Zelensky has no business being the president of Ukraine. He shouldn't even be there. Our illustrious CIA put him in there. And don't forget, during the Cuban Missile Crisis, communication was key. You should never fear to negotiate, never negotiate out of fear. No truer words were ever spoken. We need to keep lines of communication open. And if this interview helps do that, beautiful. To all the people, all the crooked people in this government, in this mainstream media, saying, oh, Putin this and Putin that, they're fucking as guilty as sin. And they know they are. The fact is, these wars have been going on for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. We have no business interjecting ourselves in any of them. Putin made it clear that history pretty much, according to him, is on his side. Okay, and the interview was extremely, extremely important. And what he said was extremely, extremely important. Back in Europe and all these older countries than us, which is just about the whole fucking world, people still have great national pride, shall we say. And even after wars are fought thousands of years, it gets passed down over and over and over again. People never forget. They never forget. Oh, I'm a Russian. I'm this. I'm that. I'm a Polish person. They don't forget. So even though lines are redrawn again and again and again and again, and coups are made and presidents are put in power, and people still consider themselves. So not everyone in Ukraine considers themselves a quote-unquote Ukrainian. They don't. A lot of them consider themselves Russian. And you need to understand this. And Putin also says that he's trying to fight against neo-Nazis. And we know that neo-Nazis are in Ukraine. And even when Tucker Carlson interrupts him and says, well, you know, Hitler died so many decades ago, Putin says, yeah, Hitler was a man, but his philosophy is still alive and well. And until you get rid of all that, and he's right. He's exactly right. We are propping up a very bad dictator that shouldn't even be in there. So this is where your tax dollars are going. This interview was extremely important. There is a reason why certain people in this country do not want you to hear what he has to say. And I think it's very important. And back when, I don't remember anybody complaining when Leslie Stahl went and interviewed Osama bin Laden in a fucking cave. But now, if Tucker Carlson goes over to Russia to interview Putin, an extremely important interview, the interview probably of our lifetime, all of a sudden he's a traitor, he's this, because he's talking to the guy. He's letting the guy speak. That's bullshit. Communication is extremely important. JFK had communication with Khrushchev during the Cuban Missile Crisis. If he did not have that communication, the world could have blew up. And might I remind you, we didn't like their missiles on our doorstep. Do you think Putin wants them to join NATO? Next thing you know, missiles will be going in there and pointing right at Russia. Russia can't have this. So do not, whether you like them communist or not, they like their borders a lot better than our government likes its borders, apparently. So do not, don't say, oh, Putin this, Putin that, Putin apologist, that. No. They have a right to defend their borders. And NATO has encroached, and coming closer and closer to their borders after there was a promise made saying they wouldn't go beyond a certain line. They have since crossed that line a long time ago. How much patience do you think the guy's gonna fucking have? NATO needs to cut the shit out. The United States needs to get out of NATO. It's nothing but a piece of shit organization, as well as the UN. The UN are nothing but pedophiles that go around the world raping children. This interview was the most important interview probably of my lifetime. I think it was the most important interview of all of our lifetimes in the current age. And for our government to sit there and try and stop him, there's something very criminal about that. And for the EU to threaten him and everything else, Europe is, for the most part, a piece of shit. I would never want to go over there. I don't know who does or why. I am not a communist. I am not for pro-Russia, but we should have open lines of communication with all these people. Because for the simple reason, we've gone over again and again and again and again, thinking that we can spread democracy at the barrel of a gun. It never works. Never works. That's what Donald Trump understood. And that's why we didn't start any new wars. We got out of Syria. He knew where the bad players were. He knew who they really were. Not who our media says they are. Now, I am not a Putin apologist or any of this crap, but the fact of the matter is they're going to exist on the planet. Like them or not. We're not going to overtake their country. It's not going to happen. Maybe that could have happened in the 40s or 50s. It can't happen now. Okay? We have to learn to coexist on the same planet. And so lines of communication are very, very, very important. And hearing what the other person has to say is very important now more than ever. And so because of that, this interview probably was one of the best interviews of all time. And Tucker didn't say too much. He kind of just let him talk, which is what he should have did. He did interject a few times, and Putin looked a little irritated. So I think Tucker was lucky to make it out of there alive. But the fact of the matter is, he let him talk. He let him explain the history, which unfortunately I think most Americans nowadays are just too fucking stupid to understand. And that's a big issue. Our educational system is so bad, what we call history is not history. And you know, most black people I've worked with, they think history started around the Civil War and the United States is responsible alone for slavery, and white people are responsible for slavery, and basically slavery is the only subject on the planet. So, get real, niggas. Seriously. there's a much bigger world out there than just you. And no, you were not the only ones that were slaves. We'll get into that in another podcast. But for now, this interview, in case you haven't watched it, please go watch it. It is extremely, extremely, extremely important. And what the guy has to say makes a lot of sense. You may have to rewind it and watch it again to get it all, because it's very thick with history. Very thick with history. This history in there most Americans just cannot understand at all. Cannot comprehend. So, slow down, take it in, and watch it, and listen to what he has to say. And it will make perfect sense. If we had strong leadership, he never would have went into Ukraine. But he's been wanting to go get Ukraine back for some time. And also, he is tired of having NATO chomping at his heels. We didn't like the Cuban Missile Crisis. Why should he like this? Understand, other countries have borders. Just because our government doesn't think we should have borders doesn't mean other countries don't think so. So, remember that. He's protecting his borders, and a lot of the people in Ukraine consider themselves Russians. This goes back farther than you can even comprehend. Other countries have a much deeper history than our country. So, you've got to understand their history and how they think. Most of the people in this country do not. Our leadership doesn't understand shit. Remember, our president is senile as fuck. He doesn't understand jack shit. So we had a president in there that understood this, but apparently he was cheated out of the presidency. So, won't go any further about that. It's a fact. Chick walking her dog. She's kind of hot. So anyway, that's it. I'm going to go check out this chick walking her dog. So, balls.